This is Office Talk with Annette Stepanian. Hey, welcome back to another episode of Office Talk. I'm your host, Annette Stepanian, and in today's episode, we're going to dive into some of the most common questions I get from my wedding and event pros. Now, if you're not a wedding professional, I don't want you to skip this episode. Although I'm answering those frequently asked questions for this specific industry, keep an open mind because there could be a question in here or a concern in here that could totally apply to what you do. So keep listening. Now, before we dive in, I know that you're listening to this episode because you've got some concerns when it comes to the law and your business. Well, I want to invite you to join me for one of my free webinars happening all month long. You can learn more over at yourlegalbff.com. Just click on the workshops tab and you will find the link to all of my free webinars. In these webinars, we are going to go in and we are going to talk about some of the common contract mistakes that folks are making in their industry. What I love about my webinars is not only are they full of really actionable information, but they're tailored to your specific industry. So you're not getting generic information. I really try and address what are some common concerns, issues, and mistakes that might come up in your industry. So maybe you're an event planner, maybe you're a photographer, maybe you're a stationery designer. So I invite you to check them out. I invite you to sign up for them. But most importantly, I encourage you to attend live. I'm going to be there live with you guys, trying to get all of this stuff sorted out so you can get back to what you do best, which is running your successful business. One last thing, I've created a handy dandy checklist to accompany this episode. You can download it for free over at yourlegalbff.com/office talk and search for episode 67. In that checklist, I'm breaking down all the contracts that I think you need to have in your arsenal when you run an event and wedding-based business. So make sure to grab it. You can find that over at yourlegalbff.com/office talk and search for episode 67. Okay, my event and wedding planner folks. Not just planners, but event and wedding professionals. So whether you are a florist, an event rental company, there are so many components to the event planning process, so many vendors whose hands touch an event and work together to make it beautiful. And I've been lucky enough to work with so many of you guys, whether it's been one-on-one as clients or whether it's been at a speaking engagement. You guys have a very special place in my heart. Ready or not, let's dive in. One question is, how long should my contracts be? The concern here is that if it's too long, you're going to scare away your potential client and lose the potential engagement. And who wants to do that, right? Well, my friends, there is no magic number. There is no magical font or color of paper that is going to make a contract right or wrong. It really is about substance over form here. Okay, we want to make sure that you're including the most important contract terms in your contracts to protect you, but also to protect your client. Now, let's say you're in the situation where a client comes back to you and says, your contract is too long, I don't want to sign it. Well, you could turn around and ask them if they had any concerns or questions about the contract and that you would be happy to walk them through it, and letting them know and reminding them that this contract is there to protect both of you guys. So in the event that something happens, such as a wedding or an event gets canceled, it outlines what the process is going to be in that situation. Now, if you make this offer and the client is still huffing and puffing, that just might be a sign that it's time for you to move on to the next potential client. The moral here is I don't want you guys to be afraid that the contract looks too scary or looks kind of too intimidating. What I really want you guys to think about is, do I, as a business owner, even understand the contract? Does it include the terms that are necessary and important to protect me, to protect my business, and to protect my client? So don't be worried. Don't let a potential client who is scared about reading some fine print sway you off your path. Another question that comes up is, what if we want to terminate this contract? Does the client need to sign something? Do I need to sign something? How does this actually work? Now, that is a great question, and the answer should be in your initial contract that you guys have signed. Hopefully, your contract has a clause in there talking about termination or cancellation of services and will outline under what circumstances a party can terminate and what steps they need to take in order to do so. So pull out that contract, take a look through it. If it says, for example, you've got to give 10 days written notice to the other party, then make sure you give them 10 days written notice. If it is silent or there isn't anything super specific in there for you to follow, first thing, take a look at that clause in your contract and consider revising it. But in this specific situation, you want to document that termination in some manner. So whether that's by email or some sort of written letter, you want to have a written paper trail evidencing the intention to terminate the contract. Now, how often have you had the situation where you've had a client, maybe a bride or a groom, that just won't pay? So everything's gone great. You guys have gotten on the phone, your initial consult. They're like, send me the contract. I am ready to move forward with you and get this party started. Okay, they signed the contract, but they don't really pay you that first fee that they owe you, whether it's a retainer or a deposit. There's usually, most planners will take an initial payment up front to confirm their services. So you follow up with them and you go back and forth and they keep saying, oh, the check's in the mail, the check's in the mail. Well, I want you guys to take a look at the part of your contract that talks about when the contract is deemed effective, okay? Now, it might be deemed effective at the moment they sign the contract, and so therefore you guys are in an agreement, and therefore you are required to provide your services to the client. However, one thing to consider is to write your contract in a way that states that the agreement becomes effective only upon receipt of a signed contract from your client, as well as receipt of that initial payment. That basically means that you are not obligated to provide services because there really is no agreement until you received a signed copy of the contract as well as that initial payment. What ends up happening for a lot of folks, I mean, even outside of the wedding industry, is they'll get a signed copy of the contract, but they won't receive that initial payment. They keep waiting for payment, and that payment never comes, and you've done all of this work in the interim. And what I want to do is try and avoid that for you guys. I don't ever want you to be in a situation where you are doing work and not getting compensated for it, or at least not getting compensated as quickly as possible. Take a look at your contract and see what it says and consider reworking it so it's on terms that work for you. Another question that comes up a lot, and we really dive into talking about this on my webinars, is the issue of, can you use images of a wedding that you have planned or you have styled as part of your portfolio or marketing? Okay, now this is a huge topic and it involves understanding a few different concepts like copyrights and publicity rights and those things. I have done a past episode just on this topic. It's episode 46, so you might want to go back and have a listen. But to sum it up, essentially, you do need to get permission, and there are two groups of people you need to get permission from. So depending on the type of content that you want to utilize, I'm going to make it super simple. Let's say it's an image that a photographer took of the couple and you want to put it on your website. So you want to just demonstrate with the level and quality of work that you can do. You need to get permission from the couple, but you also need to get permission from the copyright holder of that image. In this example, we're going to assume that the photographer is the copyright owner of that image. So we're going to assume that because the photographer is the copyright owner, then that is the person we're going to need to get permission from. If for whatever reason the photographer transfers their copyright to those photos to, let's say, the couple, then you need to then just get permission from the couple. You can do this in one of two ways. You can have a clause in your contract already from the get-go stating that the couple gives you permission to utilize their images or images of their wedding in relation to your marketing, or you can do it after the fact by way of a photo release. Now, these are templates that I have on my website. They are included both in my event and wedding planner contract templates, but I also have photo releases on my website as well in case you don't have that in your contract and you want to get permission after the fact. And here is the most popular question I get from wedding professionals. Are you ready? Drum roll, please. It's how to draft a contract when I provide multiple services or packages. And it has become such a popular question that it has its own episode 38. Now, you can go back and listen to this episode, but I'm going to break down the essentials here as well. You guys are a Jack and Jill of all trades. You want to do so many different things. You can do so many different things, from event planning to event design to floral arrangements to, tablecloth rentals. You are all trying to do so much. Then the question becomes, well, how do I reflect this in a contract? And it's a fair one. And at the same time, you're wanting to streamline your proposal process, the way contracts are delivered. You don't want to have 25 different contract templates, for every different service. So how do we design our contracts to reflect the different types of services we have without overwhelming ourselves with a million different contract templates? Okay. Now, the answer to this is really going to depend on a few things. The first thing I like to ask someone is, well, what are the nature of the services you're providing? Let's say you are an event planner. You have a stationery design component. Maybe you do event design. Maybe you have event rentals along with it. Once you've listed out all of your different services, I want you to think about, what are the issues here that for each of these services that could potentially come up in a client relationship? For example, event planning. There are things related to a client's payment. There might be issues related to event rescheduling, maybe event cancellation. So there are certain topics that consistently come up when you are working on an event planning service. But then you take event rentals, for example. So this is where you are renting out props, maybe tablecloths, maybe tabletop items or whatever. And then you list the issues that arise under that service. So you might have some of the same, right? You might still have issues with payment. You might still have issues with event rescheduling. You might have issues with event cancellation. But there are certain issues that are unique and distinct to event rentals that may not come up with event planning. So for example, with event rentals, one thing is maybe you have a damage deposit. There's issues related to delivering these props and these rentals to the venue. So you start kind of looking at this and architecting it and start seeing, well, which ones are kind of similar flavors? Can I really combine all of these issues in one contract? Does it flow? Does it really make sense? And you want to make sure that if you are going to put them in one contract, that you are addressing all of these issues for all of these potential services. Now, in your mind, it might make sense to keep them distinct, and that's totally fine. Maybe event rentals are a completely different contract because you feel like the issues there's just so many that are distinct that you'd prefer to keep them in a separate contract. But when I think about, let's say, event planning or event design, maybe they kind of feel like they're the same flavor, so I'm going to keep them in the same contract. Another issue is you want to think about, at what point in your sales process are you booking these services? Now, if you are doing it on day one when a potential client comes to you and they're going to book you both for event planning and, let's say, event rentals on day one, then maybe you do put them in one contract. But if it's something that you upsell to your clients during your relationship with them, so maybe on day one they come in, they hire you to plan their wedding, but then on day 90 they realize, oh, you have a great stash of event rentals and I want to rent those from you for my event. Maybe at that point it makes sense just to keep them separate, right? Because at different points they're coming to you for two different services. And then I want you to distinguish, is it that you're providing different services or are you providing different packages or levels of service? For example, as an event planner, you might have different types of packages. One might be, let's say, day of coordination, where your role is really just to be there on the day of the event, making sure things are running smoothly, but you're not doing a lot of the planning that happens preceding the event. Maybe you have a month of coordination package, and then maybe you have a full planning package. So you have 3 different packages. The services are of the same flavor, right? They're all coordination, planning related type of services, but you're getting a different level of service depending on the type of package the client picks. So to recap, let's say you have a day of, a month of, and you have a full planning package. What you might want to do there is maybe have 3 separate contract templates depending on the type of package a client selects. Or if you want to consolidate and streamline them, what you can do is, for instance, have a contract, a main contract that has all the main terms and conditions that are going to relate to this contractual relationship that you're entering into with this client. So all the payment terms, all the issues regarding event rescheduling and cancellation, all that good stuff. And then what you do is, depending on the type of package they select, you swap out the language in the services section. Or alternatively, you have that main contract and the services section references an attachment that reflects the different packages. So let's say you have a client who comes to you and wants a month of package. What you do is you have a contract that has all the general terms and conditions regardless of which package they pick. And it references attachment A, which are the services, and the services on attachment A are going to be your month of services, okay? And then let's say you have someone who wants full planning services. You would then use the same main contract with the general terms and conditions, and the section where it says that you're going to reference the services in attachment A, you're going to have a different attachment A that reflects the services that are included in your full planning package. I'm hoping this is making sense. Okay, you guys, that's all I have for you with this episode. If you want to get together and learn more and really dig into some of these questions, particularly as they relate to your contracts, I invite you to check out and sign up for one of my free webinars. As I mentioned earlier, you can find that link over at yourlegalbff.com. You'll see a nice link called workshops, and that's where you can click on through to sign up and attend one of my live webinars. Okay, you guys, hopefully you enjoyed this episode. What you can expect in a future episode is common questions I get from my graphic designers, my web designers, my stationery designers, and not only are you going to get their common questions, but you're going to get my answers to those questions. So make sure to subscribe to the show so you don't miss that episode. Or if you have other friends who are in that industry and you think they could benefit from that information, make sure to share news of the Office Talk podcast with them. Thank you so much for listening. I truly, truly appreciate it. And I can't wait to talk to you later. Before you skip to that next episode, I want to invite you to a special event called Legal 360 Live. In this live online summit, we're going to walk through what you need to know, legally speaking, as you start and grow your business. So if you're ready to roll up your polka-dotted sleeves and finally get your legal house in order once and for all, head on over to yourlegalbff.com/live. That's yourlegalbff.com/live.